All right, guys, I think we're live. I have, excuse my, would appreciate that, of course. One second here, people. Uh, we've got AD Landor here. I'm so happy. It's been one of those things where we just kind of like had to reschedule a few times. And where are you hailing from? By the way, I hope you've had a wonderful day. Everybody, AD Landor.
Good evening, hello, good afternoon, good night, everybody
Yeah.
around the world. Yeah, no, I have had a good day actually. I've been off work today, so I've had time to do some writing, or do my other job, and yeah, it just lays around, which is always
There
good
you
news.
go. So kind of just like a good day. That sounds like a wonderful day for somebody who likes to write, and been a little bit tiring. The newborn, she's got like some reflux. Me and my wife. So if I'm a little slow, I'm sorry, but I'm so happy to be here. And guys, look how beautiful. I have a picture of me and my sons are holding these books, and I love that picture because like how beautiful these hardcovers are. They're so gorgeous. We've got Angel Falling and Angel Rising.
Yes,
Um,
I'd love to claim responsibility, but
so
actually,
who
it's
is responsible?
who is responsible is a lady called Kelly Ritchie, who I think hails from Idaho, and she runs a company called Story Wrappers, and she's an amazing graphic artist, and I think I was very lucky to secure her early on. And I think she had what I loved about her covers is that she has this vision for the design. So if you look at them together, you can see that there are similarities in terms of the structure and kind of the backgrounds, and everything kind of flows together. So there's natural sort of structure and purpose to them that if you just look at the pictures, you go, oh, amazing pictures. But when you look at the whole aesthetic of the design, it really pops. And
Oh,
so I'm very grateful to her for doing that work.
yeah.
Obviously, my inspiring brief, of course.
Yes, well, that's got to be. I mean, as an artist, somebody you really need to give that. And uh, the character on front, what's the name?
So that's Azshael, who is our narrator and
Azshael.
our main character. Yes.
I'm so glad you said it. You kind of told me before because I would have said Azshael, but I like how you say Azshael. And that's easy to say as long as you know how to say it. And either way,
Yes.
I think would come across fine, right?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, that's how I say it. Readers may read as they wish and call him whatever
Sure.
he likes. He doesn't mind, honestly. I think.
So tell us about, give us a little overview of the series, the name of the books, the genre, the whole spiel.
All right, get set. Story time. So,
Yes.
so yeah, I describe them as they are dark fantasy, and I would call them sort of noir kind of thrillers. And I wanted to kind of distinguish them from kind of the grim dark and other dark fantasy tropes. They're kind of detective and investigative stories, mystery thrillers, if you like, but yes, but they're wrapped up in a fantastic world.
Mm.
Um, and that world is the elevated pitch is it's sort of Machiavellian angels and Bushido vampires. That's the
Ooh.
sort of the elevator pitch, if you like. Um, so the way I've written them is they are kind of individual books, and you can read them on an individual basis, but it's kind of like a multi sort of structured read. So if you want to go from beginning to end of the series, then you're going to have a deeper read, but you don't necessarily have to do that. You can go book by book or just drop in at book 2 or 3 or whatever, and you'll still have a self-contained story, and hopefully you'll understand what's going on. So
I love
um,
that.
so the sort of the premise is that the narrator, Ashael, is an outcast angel. He's a member of this host of the Seventh Flight, which is uh, this is a multiverse version of angels. That's probably a key point to make from the outset. And vampires, so they're not traditional tropes. They're something sort of analogous alongside. So they're like they're in a different universe, a different set of worlds, if you like. Um,
Okay.
and the flight essentially are God's deliverers of judgment, although what they call God is they call it Excelsis, and this sort of celestial entity, which they believe is righteous and sending them down the alley of doing right things. And they deliver final judgment to planets and races across the universe. And that is a process that they believe is the right thing to be doing, because the planets and races they tend to visit are worshipping dark gods, or they've gone through some terrible upset that has basically caused their societies to basically decay and fall into bad ways, if you like. So they've never failed in their task until they come to the planet called Cerule, and Cerule is inhabited by a race of demonic energy vampires called the Suke. The Suke were once kind of like rapacious world conquerors who worshipped an ugly pantheon of sort of bloodthirsty deities. But they went through a renaissance and an enlightenment, and they stopped worshipping these dark pagan gods and left those days behind, and created a new meritocratic society where there's a caste system. They're also honor bound, hence the sort of reference to Bushido. So they believe in sort of honorable ways. And the angels arrive to deliver judgment, but they're not the same vampires that they used to be. But they're still tough, and they still have sort of vampire abilities and toughness. So they go through a war, and that war is an attritional war that neither side can win. In the process, they pretty much cause the actual planet that they're on to start to die and decay.
Oh wow.
They're in a dying world. And eventually, there comes to a sort of like a truce. They form an armistice, and the two races start to learn to live together. And our main character, Azshael, becomes a diplomat. He was a soldier, but he becomes a diplomat. And he is one of the first people to sort of interact with the Suke on a non-war basis, but trying to find, understand them and, live with them. And he falls in love with a vampire by the name of Iske. And they live together for a while, and then she is murdered fairly brutally. He comes back to find her dead in the house that they lived in the Suke sort of underworld kind of thing. And this throws him into, he believes it's a racist murder. He believes that sort of either angels were upset with him having slept with the enemy, so to speak, or the vampires themselves hated the idea that someone from the angel side was basically involved with one of their own. So he goes into this sort of downward spiral. And when we first meet him, he's really on sort of like a ragged edge. He is addicted to a drug called Rain, which is a vampire sort of blood enhancer.
Yeah.
And he's in a pretty bad way. And he is nearly falls victim to being murdered by one of the Suke, who basically tries to take it. Angels have two hearts, so he loses one of his hearts in this incident, and then he's saved at sort of the last second from being completely killed. And he's saved by a Suke elite warrior whose name is Lita. And she is a Seret. She's basically a spirit, a spirit warrior who's bound in flesh. And she serves the leader of the Suke, who is called the Vod. His name is Vodkarsh.
That's a great name.
Thank you. So he has this debt that he has to pay, and he is called into service by his archangel who leads the flight. His name is Anael, and he has this. There's been a murder on an angelic soil of an elite vampire concubine of the Vod, and it turns out the way she has been murdered is exactly the same way that his dead love was murdered. So he finds himself basically embroiled in this sudden investigation, but he's very much motivated by the fact that the modes of death are exactly the same. So if you can find out who killed, this dead girl, then potentially you can also find out who killed his love, and that sort of motivates him to get involved in this investigation that takes place both in the vampire world and also in the angel world. So So that's the basic premise. They start to uncover a cabal, a conspiracy, um, which
And
is looking to restart the war between the races, essentially. So I won't say any more than that. That's a bit too spoilery, but that's what you
yeah,
get off. That's what you get off the blurb off the back of the book. So
that, Timothy Wolf kind of hits a point that I was going to just hit. Like the complexity is, and it's not one that is like a an off-putting type of complexity. It's interesting. From what it sounds like, there's lots of, you said Bushido, vampires, a dark fantasy noir. That's attractive in itself.
well,
That's
thank you.
something, yeah, you don't usually hear those two things together, and that sounds really really fun. And Hale Laura says so. It's kind of like a murder mystery.
Essentially, yes, it is a murder mystery. And I suppose it has thriller tropes and mystery tropes and fantasy tropes in it. So it's kind of all three things rolled together.
That sounds really refreshing. That sounds, yeah, a refreshing, I think, is the word. What kind of inspired all these things to kind of come together?
So I knew I wanted to do something with the sort of angels and vampires together. The original idea just came out of the blue in the middle of the night, on the loo, actually. Basically, I had this sort of vision of an angel investigator of some kind, but also then a sort of like an undead samurai. And the sort of two things then sort of marry together, and I started to think about it more. Um, Strangely, this was written maybe 2013, I think. Um, and at that stage, obviously, self-publishing or indie publishing really hadn't moved beyond the vanity press kind of movement, and we didn't really have the same platforms that we do now.
Yeah.
So I spent a long time trying to submit it to agents and publishers and got zero traction. Very famously, I had one note from an American agent who wrote back to me and said, "Thank you for your submission, but we don't have religious fiction." Uh, I was trying to think, well,
Religious
where
fiction.
are the vampires in the Bible?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. I think,
It's strange.
well, I think that as a publisher, just from what I understand, as somebody talks to people who are both published, mostly indie, but people who are also published, it's like sometimes they may look at the title or just like a blurb and just come to this unrealistic uh, presumption, I guess. Uh,
Well, I think what often happens, there's a lady called Anne Minnie, who is the daughter of Philip K. Dick. And she wrote a great blog called Author, which you can still find the archives of online today. Unfortunately, I think her site was hacked, but the archive is still there. You can still see it. And she talked in a lot of detail about how professional readers read. And when you're looking at particularly at agents, the average agency gets ridiculous amounts of manuscripts every week, maybe
oh
50 to
yeah,
60 a week. So what happens is they have a screening process, and that screening process uh, has a very set criteria about how it works. It's often sort of literary graduates or English literature graduates that are basically doing that screening. It's not the agent themselves, because they just don't have time to look through that many manuscripts. Their job is to get on and sell your work. So the people they represent, so they have people look at it. So very often professional readers are looking to stop. They're looking for a
yeah,
reason to stop. So if your grammar is bad, or it's not properly spelled, or it's not proofed, it's whatever it may be, if it's not your best work that's being submitted, then that's likely to get you chucked. So I spent a long time sort of learning about how that all worked before I tried to submit things. But very often I
yeah.
think people are time poor, and it's just one of those things.
It's just one of those things. I think as vague as that is, I think that you're right. It's one of those things, and it's kind of understood a little bit after talking to people who have done it for a while, this and that. How many installments do you plan on there to be for people who are interested?
So I think there will be maybe 6 to 7 novels in total
Love it.
for this series. I'm currently hard at work on book 3. That should come out sort of fall next year, I think. Um, and they will be. I think there will be sort of. It's a connected world, so it is a series. But as I say, they kind of each book is kind of self-contained. I think that will be the case for the first 4. But my thoughts are developing. The last 3 books will essentially be a trilogy. and be a far more connected, ongoing story, because there's quite an epic tale going on. So it will
No,
grow as it grows.
epic in length too. I love that as far as the series. I was gonna show the trailer. Are you good with that? I
Oh
think it's
yeah, go for it. Yes,
freaking
I'm very happy
awesome.
with this. And thank you for all your work. Yes. Those that don't know, Matthew basically helped me out with the actual soundtrack, which wasn't working on some platforms, but he very kindly helped do. Are you playing your version, your remix?
No, so this is gonna be the one that you sent me. So it's gonna have
Okay, fine.
yeah. It was just TikTok, I believe, that didn't have some of it. I don't know, but I think this should be the original. So here we go, guys. That is one of the most impressive
I was going through
trailers,
it every
man.
time I see that. It makes me want to read my own book.
Yeah, dude. It really and it was even better that time. I hadn't listened to it with these like $20 headsets, but it made it even better. Holy moly. Just some intense music, some good bass in it.
Yes, they do a
It
good job.
pumped me up when I seen it for the first time and this time, but man, especially the first time. Uh, dude, yeah, I agree. Hail the Lord, epic trailer. I totally agree. Timothy Wolf, awesome. Uh, yeah, totally agree. So I always kind of like to dip into why you're here. What was it that I know you have another career like most indie authors do.
Yes.
What really drove you to also want to write?
So I think I'm going to quote Joe Abercrombie here, because he said that he's a record of saying that he started writing his own of the First Law trilogy because there was nothing quite like it around, and he thought, well, if I'll create my own thing, create the thing I want to read. So that's kind of for me, it's about the same sort of thing. There just weren't enough Machiavellian angels and Bushido vampire novels around, so I
Yeah,
thought I would write one.
I
So
like that
yeah,
answer too, because it's like if you have that idea, you're lucky to have that idea that I'm assuming you're well versed in like reading lots of fantasy. Now, me,
yeah.
I'm still pretty new.
The thing is, I think if I go back to my memories of when I first started reading fantasy, um, there's just a joy to it. There's a joy
Mm.
about the immersion into the subject. And I grew up in an age, of course, where there were a lot less distractions. There were no game consoles. We had three channels of television in the UK for until I was 14 or 15, and there was a fourth one added. Ooh. And we didn't have cable. So there was a lot less distractions. So books were really a natural escape. And I think I was very lucky to grow up in a family where books were valued, and there were lots of books around and lots of stuff to read.
Uh,
And so
Now, do you still have some of those books that was it your parents or
oh,
that
sure.
had them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, to me, they're all little treasures of one type or
Oh,
another. And, it's the great thing. I'm a member of the Goldsborough Books Guild of Science Fiction and Fantasy, which, does limited, like Broken Binding, does limited
yeah, they're
editions, I
very
think.
highly regarded.
And I love it. Every month I get a little treasure, a little new treasure shows up.
I
And it's,
wish I know my and I would, you always find these little things like for me with my grandmother, I spent so much time with her, but it just didn't seem like enough still. She passed 4 years ago, I believe. Don't quote me. I believe it was 4 5. The years really just fly anymore. So when the
mm,
actual number hits me, it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. But she had these bookshelves that I sure wished that I would have, been interested in. Because all of my books, except one that I'm looking at right now that I got from a thrift store, are modern. They're all, not that that's a bad thing, but I wish I had some treasures here like what you were talking about, because I'm sure that it would be such a cool thing to crack open a book from the 40s, 50s, 60s.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
I
Yeah,
mean, they're almost 100 years old at that point. At this point, something from the 40s or 30s, something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Uh, and just to me, that's really it's historic, and it's kind of like a dive into the mind of the times. Regardless if we agree with those times or not, they need to still be in history, and we still need to learn about them. And because it shows a lot from what we've evolved from, and I just think it would be amazing. Maybe so I'll ask my family members. I've actually been thinking about this. Like, hey, do you guys still have any grandma's like books? Because I'd sure like to look through them if they're
Yeah,
still
yeah,
around.
yeah. But it's
Uh,
also the great thing about going to thrift stores and secondhand bookshops and
yeah.
seeing these sort of gems being passed down through time.
Tell me if you
Um,
know this one. This one's from I think it was published in 90. So it's not even that old, but
oh, John
Titan.
Varley. Yes,
So you
yes,
know John Varley. I love that.
yes, yeah,
Look at
yeah.
the mustache.
I know. Yeah, that's hardcore.
That, look, that's something to look like. I mean, that's a mustache for the ages. I wish I had one like that. I can't grow a mustache very well, but this guy can.
Wonderfully bushy and black, isn't it? It's it's a
Y-
statement. It's a statement mustache.
Yeah, I believe this. I have to look now because, gosh, it just looks older than the 90s. It does. But then you think it's, the 90s was, which I was born in 90. So this was, I was wrong. Copyright 1979. That's cool.
Now, the fitting was 78. I mean, the art, book art often gives those sort of things away because that was definitely a type of art. Do you know the band Magnum at
I
all?
don't.
It's a British rock band, and they had trying to remember the name of the artist. I'm sure someone will tell us in the thing, but that was a certain style,
It's like an
of art
acid
that went
trip.
with all their album covers. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
this is funny, and I don't even care what people think when I say this. I have been offered to do that, as a teenager, and I was so scared from the stories. I never have done that, but I'm assuming that it's something like that. But
Yeah, yeah.
you, you look at this, and it's got this. It's like a cloud with eyes. I mean,
Yes, yeah.
that's incredible. I love the art, and back then it wasn't not taking anything away from modern illustrators at all because there's lots of
Rodney
books.
Matthews. I just remembered it. Rodney Matthews is the guy's name. You look
Rodney
up Rodney
Matthews.
Matthews art.
Oh, that's incredible. I have to write that down.
Has a certain
Uh,
kind of aesthetic to it.
Another one from back then, of course, everybody knows is what is it? Michael Whalen. Is that his name? Michael Whalen?
Michael Whelan. Yes,
Whelan.
yeah,
Okay, Whelan.
yeah. He did all the Dark Tower covers, particularly the American releases, and Michael Moorcock. He was very big on the Elric art. He's an amazing artist. Really
His
amazing.
stuff still goes for like I've looked at his
Oh yeah,
website quite a few times,
yeah,
and he sells just like they're not originals, or
yeah. Just prints. Yeah, yeah.
and they're just crazy. Yeah, and people, he's always sold out of like just sold out. Uh, who just Oh, it was a guy that I'm going to speak with soon. He wrote The Severing Sun, Von Roycroft. He's also an
Right.
indie
Yes.
author.
Yes.
He just got like a big print of
I saw
the
that.
second
Yeah.
book.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, how cool would that be? Do you have? Are you going?
I'm thinking about it because I'm going to go and do some direct selling of my books at various, certainly at least one convention coming up.
Oh, that's
So,
amazing. I wish
so
I
I
lived
came
in
in
the
today.
UK.
Oh well, you're always welcome to come over. You can definitely camp on the couch, mate. No
There
worries.
we go. Um, So Hail the Lure, I think that that would be such a cool idea. The only holdup is, man, I would certainly not have the time at the moment. Um, I'm what me and AD Landor was talking about this right before. Really, what I'm trying to do at the moment, and you guys all know this, but getting names out there, talking to people, getting some experience under my belt, getting some tools that I need that I have not equipped. I don't have equipped yet, but when I do have the time, when my kids are a little bit older, man, that sounds like a hobby worth having.
You
Let's
could
just look
definitely.
for old books all day. Let's
That's
just drive around.
definitely a video series where you go from store to store and see what's there. Definitely.
Right. John Douglas, man, thank you for popping in. Hail Beard, I'm at work, but dropping my like and comment. Catch this later. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, John.
Uh, and which is funny. I don't know if John, you're still here. Mr. Landor was asking me, and I'm so tired I didn't even realize it. I still had the Black Crown behind me, his book that was just dropped. I had the cover behind me still, and you were asking me if it was a dragon because you couldn't see it. And I was just like, I'm so confused right now. And then it totally made sense when we popped on. I said, oh my goodness, that's his cover art behind me. I'm behind today, guys. Mr. Landor's keeping me on my toes.
We forgive you. We forgive you.
Yeah, I agree. For sure, a great hobby. I totally agree, Hail the Lord. That's a wonderful idea. And for those, I think like walking, one that I would love to find is a original, which if I did, I'd have some, I wouldn't sell it. Now I'm saying I wouldn't sell it, but maybe one day I would, because it'd be worth a nice chunk of money. I've looked up, it's quite expensive, but like a first edition Wizard of Oz,
Wow.
that would be incredible.
Frank L. Baum, what a twisted genius.
Oh, and if you look at the very first Wizard of Oz book, it doesn't look like what you think it's going to look like. It's very beautiful, but yeah, that would be the book I'd want to like uncover. That one, that'd be fun. I'm a huge.
I thought you were going to say The Hobbit.
Now see, that would be a hard one to beat as well.
I think a signed Hobbit recently went for about $37,500. I think.
That's incredible.
No small investment, but
no. So let's get back to the man of the hour. That's you? Yes, absolutely you. So book number 2. Where does that? I hope my questions have a little more context behind them. But book 2, which a beautiful. We've seen the trailer for book 1. Now, does this pick up right where you leave off in book 1?
Yes. So it's not quite. Yes, it's probably a few months later after the events of book 1, and this one is about essentially a theft of a piece of angelic regalia, of the Archangel's regalia, that goes missing. At the same time, a youthful angel who's a conscientious objector is found murdered by a Suke weapon. So it's a twin. So it's another deep mystery that needs to be solved, and it takes us. I think it's my best piece of writing so far. Much as I'm happy with what happened with Angel Falling, but Angel Rising, and a few reviewers have said this, it kind of shows the progress. I think that's because I wanted. So Angel Falling to me is a bit like the movie Speed. I wanted to do a foundation plinth, but it moves. Some of the reviewers have said it moves too fast. But I wanted it to be sort of like, it's a paced read that you can read. It's 300 pages, so I think you can probably read it in a weekend if you really want to. And it's deliberately moving at speed, but hopefully it's showing you, as we move through the world, it's showing you some of the tropes and the people and places. So we're setting things up. I was very interested to hear what H.C. Newell was saying. I think we're on a very similar trajectory, although she sounds like her planning was far better than mine. So where you have these first sets of books that are kind of like an onion, you're peeling off the layers, and you're learning more and more as you go. And there's the apparent truth, and then there's the actual truth. And that's kind of part of the involvement of any mystery novel is working out what's true and what's not. So yeah, that's kind of how it goes. So as I say, it's definitely a standalone, but each book, the events of each previous book impact on what happens or what's happening in the world around the characters in the next book, and so on and so forth.
So I that's one thing, that was a question I kind of thought of through asking my last one. They're both standalones then. I mean, they're in the same series, but are they both
Yes,
standalones too?
yes, you can read them independently, or you can read them linearly, and hopefully you'll get those that want the deep immersion and the world building and all that sort of stuff. Start from book one and carry through the series. But if you just want an interesting read with a confined story that you can follow and understand, then you can read them independently.
Um, so how many years was it in between, or I don't, how long was it in between when you finished or book one and started book two and finished book two?
So actually quite a long time. So let's say probably about 2013. And then I came back during the pandemic when we were on lockdown and started to dust it off and thought, I've tried all this. I kind of left it fallow for about 2 years, having submitted and got nowhere. Um, and then, the technology, the platforms, the ease of going down the indie route became very self-apparent. So in, I think, 2019, 2020, I dusted off. I went down to the computer and looked at the file. Had a good read again, and did some proofing and some feather editing, and then thought, what the hell, let's just go for it. Back yourself to win. And so that published in 2022.
Yep.
Actually, I wrote Angel Rising pretty much in 9 months after before. So I think Angel Falling came out June 2022. I'd started writing in February Angel Rising as the follow up, and that came out in July this year. So
Yep.
it's usually
That
about a 9 month writing cycle, then about sort of a 3 to 4 month proofing and editing cycle.
so where are you in that cycle right now for the next book?
Yeah, so I've been writing since May, I think. So I've got I'm about 65,000 words. This will be about 110,000 word novel, I think.
So a
Book
little
three.
bit bigger.
Yeah, it's going to be. They are getting bigger as they're going along, because I think there's more. Is one of the interesting things about doing particularly fantasy fiction is that your brain is constantly churning the characters in the world, and I think you often find there are doors and avenues that open up for you, um, as you're writing. And I am a planner. I tend to try and outline as much as I possibly can, but to me it's like an itinerary, a travel itinerary. So if I was going from the east coast to the west coast, I'd have city stops along the way, so I know roughly where I'm going and when I'm going to get there. But I don't know what I'm going to see or who I'm going to meet or where I'm going to eat in each city as I go along, and that's kind of how I write, I think.
I love that.
So I'll get to a point and find my brain gives me this or that or the other. This is, because it's been thinking about it all this time, I think.
No, that's wonderful. I love it, and I'm glad to hear that you're in that process for getting book three out. That's really exciting. It's got to be exciting. I can't wait for my book one to kind of really
Nor
take
can
off.
yeah, go for it, man. Go for it.
Uh, I think that's really cool, man. So, do you remember your first fantasy novel, like as far as maybe your parents read to you or that you picked up on your own?
So yeah, I was thinking about this just earlier on, and uh, very first novels are probably things like Narnia. So C.S. Lewis. I probably was read The Hobbit when I was about 8, I think. But the things that I really got into to read were authors like Alan Garner and Susan Cooper. So that's The Weird Stone of Brisingamen and the Dark is Rising trilogy and that sort of stuff when I was about 9 or 10. Um, those are the books that I truly remember as being sort of like, wow, this is something really cool, really different.
And that's young too.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I'm lucky that I came from a family that sort of valued reading, and a
Yeah,
time when there were relatively distractions to do anything but read. So, um, yeah, no, I think those are probably the formative stuff. And then in my teens, um, I really liked Fritz Lieber, the Fappard and Grey Mouse series.
what was the
Uh,
name?
that's Fritz Lieber,
Fritz Lieber. Okay.
and yeah. And I also then sort of later I actually worked in the fantasy bookshop, which was called At the Sign of the Dragon in southwest London.
Oh,
It's no
nice.
no longer there, sadly, but but yeah, I was very lucky. I used to see stuff coming in all the time as the fantasy explosion took place in the sort of late 80s and early 90s. You know,
That's
it's very
cool.
yeah.
So is that where you're? I know that you're in the UK, but is
Yeah.
that where you're at? Is London?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm in the southwest suburb of London, which is
Oh
called
man.
Twickenham. So if anyone follows rugby, I'm just around the corner from Rugby Stadium, corner from
Uh,
Twickenham Stadium.
for us Americans, London is a mysterious, lovely sounding, those one of those places that has this mystique about it. Would you say that it's somewhat like that living there? I mean, I don't
It
know
is.
if
I mean, it's the history of it. I mean, we take it. I've been traveling into London 30 odd years, so it's easy for me to get blasé about it. But um, there's an author by the name of Peter Ackroyd who's written a biography of London. It's called London: The Biography, and it's fascinating. The history of that city, or this city, is just so steeped and so rich, um, and there's so much myth and legend about it because
yeah.
we were a Roman city. Londinium was
Yeah.
a Roman city, of course, and then it was a medieval city, and it's the entry, the actual paths and the lines of London haven't really changed since Roman times. So when you look at the thoroughfares that were laid out, in 800 or 500 or 400 or whatever it was, before it was sacked by Boadicea, um, you know, uh, basically are pretty much they're the same today because it's what makes sense for the structure of the city kind of thing.
Well, and it's I think another big reason that why there's so many movies, at least in my head, the
Mm.
movies that I hear are in London, as far as the setting in the movie, are also somewhat filmed near there. Or, at least it's a part
Yes.
of the setting.
Well, we have some great locations. I think the only thing that's sad these days, I work alongside the River Thames, near London Bridge, in fact, and that was a living bridge. Back in the day, where people actually lived in houses on the bridge, and
Wow.
it was a thoroughfare for animals and carts and all sorts of stuff. But the Tower of London, which was the William the Conqueror's sort of, biggest castle, if you like, and it's this huge keep that you can go and see, but it's dwarfed now. You can hardly see it. It's dwarfed by all the modern architecture around it, which is really sad because
Yeah,
you can easily blink and miss it these days.
I'm sure that's probably something that, as like a younger man, you have fond memories of. Because just in my
Yes.
head, to see carts, I can just get this like it's like a video in my head, just like you see what you're saying about the bridge. And
Yeah.
and I didn't know that it was a living bridge before. I didn't know that people lived on the bridge. I had no clue.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's there's actually a church on a place called Lower Thames Street, which goes sort of next to the Thames, and that has a sort of a scale model of what it looked like back in the day, and it's fascinating. It's well worth going to see. If you're ever in London, go and see that. It's on Lower Thames Street. I can't remember the church. Can't remember the name
I
of the church, but
I I tell my wife all the time, like before I started this channel and I talked to so many different people, I had like no connections anywhere but like just in my local region. And now it's like when I am able to travel, I've got people in the US. We can stop and have lunch. If I go to London, there's so many people I've talked to
oh
in
hell yeah,
London now.
yes,
I
no,
can make a week out of it.
we'll give you a right royal welcome. I really do think you should be knighted for your services to independent books, independent books and authors. That's what it should be. Honorary
That
knighthood.
man, yeah. So I'm gonna take my wife to London one day, and when I do, I'm getting a hold of every one of you.
Cool. Well, we'd love to see you. And I think the wonderful thing about London also is that there are areas where it almost feels like time slip. I used to go to a games club which is in the Ripper territory, so basically up in Spitalfields and that sort of area. And at night, those roads haven't changed. The sort of the lane structure in the buildings haven't changed since the 1880s, and it is spooky. It can be spooky in certain places.
I'll bet. I'll bet because it does. It has one of my actually my one of my favorite novels by J.M. Miro is a play on Victorian London. It's
Mm.
just this beautiful. So in my head, it's just so beautiful. Um, so I hope that this isn't like a repeat for you, but I want to know these kind of intricate things. I think they're so fun. Who are a couple authors you would say have their hand in the way that you write?
That's a really good question. I think it probably starts with people like David Eddings, and not necessarily Tolkien, but I mean the spirit of Tolkien in terms of the whole ideas and the world building. I think that's always been sort of informative. But yeah, I mean, I admire people like Stephen King. But the list is so long. I think it becomes a sort of a cauldron, a mix. It's
No,
it's a
yeah,
stone soup of authors that have basically helped inform my own writing style. But I try
I
and
like that.
I love words. I mean, I've always loved words. A little bit wordy, possibly, and hopefully people didn't have to reach for a dictionary too often. But but
I
I
like
love the
that.
use of words. But I love the use of words.
I think
It's always
that
been fun.
one of the most fundamental things you can do just to be better I mean, if you don't know the word for something, there is a word for it, I promise. Like there
Yes.
is a word describing what you think there is no word for. But it's like, how do you find that out? Well, one of the things is, I think is what I've done is you just pick a word throughout the dictionary every day, one that you don't know, and you just kind of try to use it throughout your day. And I don't remember the amount of times they say that you need to use something for it to actually be remembered. It's quite a bit. It's not crazy, but it was like 21, 22, something
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
it's. They said that changing a habit is 28 days.
28. Okay,
Yeah.
28. But I highly recommend doing that because it just helps your grammar, helps you be able to explain yourself or understand, come across it in a book.
Yes.
So, what's next for you? Anything coming up for you?
So the next thing for me is obviously still working hard on book three, which is called Angel of the Final Hours.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Thank you for. I didn't know. Okay, Angel.
yeah,
What is the
yeah.
name?
Angel of the Final Hours.
Angel of the Final. Oh, I like the Angel. The Final Hours.
And I'm also attending with my lovely sister Roslyn Dark Fest 6, which is in 2 weeks' time, I think, Sunday the 26th. Uh, and that's sort of like a horror film event that's taking place in Bethnal Green in London at a cinema. And my sister will be there. If anyone knows The Devil Rides Out, hey Kay. Um,
Okay.
Basically, she is the young child who is screaming at the spider. If anyone's ever seen The Devil Rides Out, if not, you should. It's a great horror film.
Please say the name again. The what is it?
The Devil Rides Out. It's
The Devil
from an
Rides
adaptation
Out.
of a Dennis Wheatley novel.
All right.
But she since
Thank you,
then has gone
Brian, for
on to
stopping
be
in.
she's gone on to do lots of other things. She's been in Star Trek: Next Generation. She was in a series here called Cat's Eyes, which was the British Charlie's Angels. Um,
Wow.
Lots of things. Anyway, she'll be signing, and I'll be trying to sell some books. So yeah, if anyone's in London and wants to come along and say hello, please do.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, man. That sounds so fun. Just to me, it's like let's ride into London today. I know a guy that's doing some book signings. Uh, this person's going to be there. That person's going to be, and it's in a bookstore. What's more exciting than that? And I know Kay agrees with me because I just watched her. I'm sure that everybody's well aware of her channel, but she just did. I believe it's a store in Canada, obviously, because that's where she is. But just looks like it's an adventure. I love to watch videos of people going into bookstores and like we were kind of talking about earlier, just to discover something new.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Kay, I like that video. That was a good one. I love it. I like all her videos, but especially that one. And then Brian D. Anderson, just talked with him about Conan. He's writing in the Conan franchise right
He's doing an
now.
amazing job, Brian. You're doing an amazing job, Conan. Thank you. You're doing an excellent job. Love your
That's
work.
a compliment, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome, Brian.
I think Conan he's a hard character to write, well. So it's very easy to do just simple stuff, and it's crom and hit something. It's and actually that's a lot of
I,
what Robert Howard, but that's not the point. He has to progress, I think, as a character into the modern age and be a bit, But yeah,
Sure.
I think Brian's doing a great job.
I want to read Robert E. Howard's, but just because. I have it. And Brian's awesome, and I haven't read anything prior to The Child, which is his story. I'm actually reading The Child now on my Kindle when I go to bed, and a couple other books. But just in case you didn't know that, I'm definitely enjoying it. That's my first thing with Conan. I have
Yeah, I mean, Robert,
now.
obviously both Robbie Howard and H.P. Lovecraft, uh, who are the architects, the forefathers of today's modern fantasy and modern horror, are products of their time, and their writing styles are products of their time. And so I think one has to bear that in mind. It's what you said earlier. There are things, and you said before, I've heard on other interviews, things are of their time, and you have to sort of accept that that's what they are. But you can still get lots of enjoyment from them. Um, but yeah, take them through to the modern age. You possibly can, and evolve the character.
I love that. Well,
That's
you've
why
got
I live
some.
in fear of the Red Sonja film.
Oh,
I hope it's going to be awesome, but I have a feeling.
so Brian's got a little experience with some bookstores. Getting people out can be tough. That's why I'll absolutely shout out from the rooftops. Let me know when that is, and we'll get the word out there as much
Yes.
as I can.
Fortunately, it's like a movie festival in a cinema, so it's in the
Oh,
upstairs
okay.
bit of the cinema. So I think lots of people are just coming to watch the films and might drift upstairs and
There you
uh,
go. That's
meet
awesome too.
the ladies of Hammer Horror are going to be there. So from time immemorial.
That's
Um,
amazing.
but no, I agree with you. There's a great story about Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett in New York, and they were booked to do this signing at Borders or one of those. And you think Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett is going back a bit. I think it was for Good Omens in the late 90s.
Which is still big, like
Yeah,
especially
but
now, but back then still too.
no one showed up
Mm.
at all. So they went across the road to a bar and just left a note saying, "We're in the bar if you want to go and see us. Come over."
It's like we need a marketer. Like, we need to hire the Beard of Darkness to do some marketing. That's what they should
That's
have
right.
done.
I think that could be your next career. So,
I've considered certain things like that.
I mean, you're already doing a great job, so helping
Thank
us
you.
all out. So thank
I
you.
appreciate that. And Kay, yeah, no, I loved it. I think that could be a really cool thing for you doing those bookstore videos. Um, yeah, and Hail the Lord says, always looking forward to promoting and reviewing new stories. It's so fun. That's what I'm doing here. And Hail the Lord, I know that's another thing that we have in common. I love that. It's so much fun. But you've got Mr. AD Landor, you've got some things coming up. Guys, go grab his books: Angel Falling, Angel Rising. If you guys missed it, let's see. I'll play it again. In fact, for those that are here now, check out this trailer. It's absolutely intense. It's so fun. Do you mind if I play it again?
No. You go for it.
All right, here it is, guys. Anybody who just saw that for the first time, it just pumps me up every time. I had to play it again because there were some more people here. And Brian D. Anderson, who's a pretty good source for that kind of marketing he's been doing. Yeah, well done. So I'm excited for the things that you're doing, you've done, and for things to come. I'm really happy that we finally got to do this. It was my fault. I kept having to reschedule. This certainly won't be the last time we're talking. Yeah, trailer can get a Viking hyped, right? Hail by Knoxwood Football. Thank you so much for showing up. That was excellent. Kay's Hidden Milk Self says he loves it. I think we're all in unison. It's amazing. It's really good. It's excellent.
I think what really impressed me is actually how well so I actually didn't write the text for that. It was written by the guys who made it, and I think they've done an excellent job almost summarizing the story. This is great.
That's so fun, man. That's got to feel so cool to kind of just say, hey, take this on and have fun with it, right? And
that's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Where does the music come from?
You know what? I have no idea. They didn't tell me, and I haven't asked.
There we go.
And find out. There you go.
To be announced.
Yes.
So I've been asking this question lately, and I really have enjoyed the answers. Who's somebody I should interview in the future?
So I'm going to back some of the booksellers. I think
okay,
a great idea for you to interview. So the first one is a guy called Sean Speakman, who runs Grim Oak Press. He is, I'm sure. He's kind of like a reprint, but he does these amazing editions of classic fantasy novels that he's loved over time. He also has an amazing personal story about resilience, because he went through a very dangerous disease that could have killed him and basically came out the other side. And he had a lot of help from people like Terry Brooks. So he's got a really good story to tell, and I think his imprint is amazing. So well worth doing that. David Headley and I can't remember the other guy who runs it. I've got a note here. Daniel Gedian, who run Goldsborough Books in London and Brighton.
David Headley and who else?
It's Daniel Gideon. It's his name, or Gedian, I think.
Daniel Gideon.
So shout out to those guys. Goldsborough do an amazing job.
Now I know Grim Press. What was the other press?
That's so Goldsborough Books.
Goldsborough.
Yes, and it's with an O. So gold as in gold, and S borrow.
Gold I like that. Gold as in gold.
Undescriptive for an author to say that. Gold as in gold.
Love it. Man, I love those. Yeah, please keep going.
Yeah, Subterranean Press, which are another. Again, they package up amazing reprints of books. I think they've been around since the mid-90s. The guy who runs that is a guy called William Schaefer, who's actually a really nice. Oh, cool. That's good. And Cemetery Dance, which is run by an author with the name of Richard Chismar, who's quite a famous horror writer. So all those, I think, do an amazing job. If I'm ever reprinted by any of those presses, I should go to my grave happy.
There you go. No, see, that's why I've been, and I don't think I'll ever stop asking this question because of this kind of stuff. Like, I have a couple coming up who aren't authors and who aren't authors. That's primarily who I talk with. Yeah. I'm going to get illustrators. I've got an editor that everybody's going to know. I promise you. I'm sure that you could guess it, and you're probably
right. Sarah Chorn by any chance?
It might be.
She's the most fated editor on this channel.
Yeah. So that's going to be fun. There's going to be a couple illustrators. And there's also a lot of people get their feelings hurt when you get turned down for an interview. Me, I know that one day I will bug this person so much that they're just going to have to eventually say yes. So I've had some turn downs, which is a part of this. That's a part of it. But that leads me to ask them in the future when I'm bigger and I'm a little more experienced. So I've got some good things coming.
You do a great job. I love your interviews. I love, they're part of the fabric of my day, to be honest now.
Wow. Thank you, man.
Yeah. And I think the volume of them as well. It's amazing how much you do in a given week. So,
I really appreciate
it. Keep on going.
I will. And I love hearing that. It makes my day. Thank you so much for that. And now I'm excited to reach out to these guys and let's hope for a 4 out of 4.
Yeah. If you don't try, you'll never guess, as they say. And
exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. The other people I think you should, obviously, I'm sure you love to, is people like Neil Gaiman and.
I've got one. equivalent to him coming up in January. I'm not going to say the
Okay.
name yet, but look forward to it, fellas and ladies.
Very excited.
Yes, it is. So I can't wait to talk more about who I'm interviewing at a later date. If you want the scoop, usually about a month ahead of time for a full month, go to my Discord. It's not easy to do that on Twitter. My posts would just get diluted so fast that it's just not a good place. And I don't do Facebook because I've been hacked, and that hacker is still hacking and trying to ask my parents and everybody for money. And it's really making me mad that I can't gain control of this account. So I won't ever be on Facebook again. Twitter and Discord is pretty much where I'm at, and Instagram. But and either way, I've had so much fun. Like I said, this won't be our last talk. I'm excited for what you've done, what you're going to be doing. And until next time, I just hope you have a wonderful night. Everybody who watched, have a great day, night, morning, wherever you're at. And we'll see you tomorrow. I'm interviewing. Good question. Tide Child, the Tide Child.
RJ Barker.
RJ Barker. Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, RJ Baker? That doesn't sound right. Of course not. RJ Barker. So he'll be on the channel tomorrow. I'm really excited for that one. So tune in. Same time, 3 p.m. Eastern, which is 8 o'clock where you guys are, which he should be right around the same neck of the woods as you. So
I should be tuning in. Thank you so much, Matt, for the opportunity. Appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who's come along and has been listening and watching. And if you're watching this on catch up,
yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. So have a wonderful day, night, morning, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Take care, guys. Thank you.